We are now live on Bigfoot Zone ECBRO. And let me sit tight. Let me add Nikki in here. She just popped up. Oh, there we go. All right, now we have both of our Texas residents here. Awesome. So, well, here we go, ladies and gentlemen. I want to let everybody know or remind them, first of all, June 12th, this Saturday, happening in Harlan, Kentucky. You'll find me and Mr. Michael Cook down in Harlan at the portal. We will be doing presentations there, and we're actually expecting a decent little crowd because the restaurant where we're holding it, they've been promoting it, and the local tourism websites are promoting it. So, and the restaurant's been getting phone calls left and right asking how much the event is, which it's actually completely free. So I think we're going to have a crowded little restaurant down there. It's going to be a lot of fun. I know that much. But that's happening in Harlan, Kentucky this Saturday at the portal. And also happening this month is the annual Virginia Bigfoot Conference happening June 26th and the 27th. And that's happening at the New Hope Rorton Club. And we're going to have a decent turnout at that event. We got well over a dozen vendors and all kinds of good old food. And Bigfoot will be there. Actually, we got two Bigfoots that are going to be there this year. So thanks to Miss Elijah Fisher from Ohio, she's actually bringing her Bigfoot costume, so that's going to be pretty cool. Yeah, and then of course your Mr. Pat Turner. I can't wait to finally meet him in person. I didn't get to meet you last time you were up here in Virginia, even though you were like 5 minutes away from me. So, but anyway, enough of my rambling. Everybody, let's welcome Mr. Ken Gerhard. And I'm actually glad you were able to make it on here with us tonight. And it's been, I don't know, I can't remember. It's been some years since the last time I had you on a podcast, but I'm glad to bring you back again. I know since then you've been involved with some projects. I know you got something currently going on right now. Well, one of the ones I do know of for sure is you're working on a fundraiser and a project regarding giant salamanders. Is that correct?
Yes. Well, yeah, good to see you again, brother. And
absolutely.
Thank you for having me on tonight. It's always an honor and a pleasure to be here with you. Yeah, we're gearing up early July. There's a group of us. It's a coordinated effort, but we're doing an expedition up in Northern California, actually very close to Bluff Creek. But we'll be moving around a little bit. But we are looking for evidence of alleged giant salamanders. And these are cryptid salamanders. So the descriptions, which date back to the 1920s and can also be found in local Native American lore, describe salamanders, like 5 feet long, which is, twice as big as a hellbender and, really comparable in size to the Japanese and Chinese giant salamanders from the genus Andrias. And, you can find the stories of these salamanders kind of permeate a lot of the old Bigfoot literature. It was kind of like a diversion starting back in the 50s when people were out looking for Bigfoot evidence or Sasquatch evidence in the Pacific Northwest. Sometimes they'd hear about sightings of these monster salamanders too. So yeah, there have been expeditions done through the years. Nothing's turned up, but I'm leading a group from Texas and Oklahoma, and we're meeting up with the Bluff Creek Project out in Northern California. And we're also coordinating with Lauren Coleman and the International Cryptozoology Museum. So that'll be like July 5th through the 12th or something like that for about a week. So yeah, I'm excited about that. Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Yeah, you had actually answered my first question I had about if there was has there been anything that's actually come forward that would actually support as far as any evidence, but as you mentioned, nothing's turned up yet. So as far as looking at this kind of thing, that we're talking about some pretty massive size salamanders. Now, is there? Well, let me ask you this, because I never really looked into that kind of background. As far as history goes, has there been anything in history that as far as something that's extinct that is more of what you're looking at that once existed?
Yeah, there were some species of giant salamanders. Technically, the family they're in are known as cryptobranchs, and they're fully aquatic salamanders that are very large, not very active, but there are different fossil versions of them that were prevalent in North America. I don't remember the timelines. I'm thinking it was probably during, like maybe the Pliocene, maybe into the lower Pleistocene. So, hundreds of thousands of years ago to millions of years ago. So not real recently, but they were here in great numbers, and there were many different species during that time. There's also a theory that potentially these North American version could be related to the Japanese and Chinese giant salamanders, which live in very similar types of habitats. That is, cold, fast-running mountain streams with very fast currents, typically very narrow streams, and they kind of hide on the banks underneath the water in rocky areas and things like that. So there is one. You asked me about evidence. All we have are eyewitness accounts, unfortunately, but there is actually a documented example of a large salamander. This one only about 2.5 feet long, but it was fished out of the Sacramento River back in the 1940s. And it was studied by a scientist named George Myers up at Cal State Chico. I forget a college up there. But anyways, originally it was kind of intriguing because it seemed to match a Japanese or Chinese giant salamander, just a little smaller. But ultimately a story came out that in fact this particular salamander had escaped, that it was an exotic, basically a pet that had been imported from Japan and with 2 others, and it had slipped off of a boat and into the Sacramento River. So, that at least that's the accepted conclusion for that particular specimen, that it wasn't an unknown, but just kind of an invasive or out of place salamander. But, other than that, all we have are the stories. But again, they are prevalent in Native American legends. I can't remember the name, but it basically translates to the long ones. They're also referred to as water dogs because they make a barking noise.
Yeah. Wow.
And there have been some recent sightings, according to our boots on the ground in the Bluff Creek project. Some guys up there like Jamie Wayne and Stephen Stuford have collected some local reports. And even, believe it or not, MK Davis claimed that he saw one of these things when he was up there at Bluff Creek, I think back in 2006. But at the time, he claims he didn't even know that it was an unknown type of salamander. So it's intriguing.
That's pretty interesting. I'll have to keep my eyes open out here in these Virginia woods out here. I can't say I've ever seen anything like that, but we have a lot of fast running streams and creeks around.
You wouldn't miss it.
Oh, I'm sure I wouldn't.
You can't miss something that big.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this, Ken. Obviously, they would have to be extremely rare.
Yeah.
So not common, right? Not a common animal, and dumb. So we're not talking about a primate. In the Bigfoot world, we're always talking about some kind of hominid that might have the brain capacity to be intelligent. These things would be dumb. They wouldn't, avoid us with any kind of intent other than, maybe possible predator. So therefore they'd have to be, fairly rare.
Sure.
Do you agree with that? Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, presumably they would be very rare animals. They haven't been seen more often, and they're having some expeditions that have been up to some of those areas through the years haven't turned anything up. What I'd say they have going in their favor, I work with the San Antonio Zoo here in Texas, and a few years ago we had 7 Japanese giant salamanders on display. They were on loan from a Japanese zoo, and they're incredibly camouflaged. I mean, even though they're huge, they've got this kind of gray mottled skin that looks like a rock kind of texture, and they don't move. And they've got very tiny eyes. They're big, flat. So people would walk by the exhibit, the tank, on a regular basis, and they wouldn't even know that they were looking at salamanders. They just think, "Is that a rock? What are all those rocks?" And then every once in a while, one of them would move a little bit. So they camouflage very well in their environment, and as I said, they're nocturnal, so they're more active at night, and they burrow very well into, like I said, into dens under rocks and kind of overhangs and different things. So but that's all presuming that we're talking about a known species. As Daniel kind of indicated, maybe we're dealing with something potentially, if these things exist, maybe they represent an unknown species, something we know from the fossil record or something we've never seen before. So
yeah, a branch we're not aware of. Yeah.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
Sure. Fair enough.
Interesting. Well, I got to jump to Zach real quick. Zach is very familiar with a lot of, mentioned or known cryptids of any sort. He's done a lot of studies on things. Zach, are you familiar with anything? Because I know Illinois has a abundance of cryptid stories and legends. I didn't know if you were familiar with anything along these lines.
Yeah, I've done regular, research on, basically I go and I deal with some stuff that are terrestrial in origin or avian. But whenever it comes to aquatic stuff, it's let's just say it's very rarely I do research on it, but I have heard reports of giant salamanders, and for example, even here in southern Illinois, we got salamanders. But I've only ever seen one in my 26 years of living, and it was actually right here in my yard. When we was digging up to put in our walkway to our back porch here at the ranch, and we dug up, and that thing was every bit of over 10 inches long, and it was just burrowed down in the dirt. So from my fingertip to the middle part of my forearm, about maybe 10 to 12 inches long. That's something relatively new. I'm really going to start looking into stuff like this too.
Yeah, well, sadly, a lot of salamander species are endangered because all amphibians, salamanders, frogs, toads, newts, they're all very sensitive to their environment changing. And so there's been a big problem with a lot of amphibian species, sadly, being eradicated in recent decades because of pollution and human encroachment on their environment and stuff. Now, I don't know about Illinois, but I know in Missouri, they may have some hellbenders, which are, get to be about 2.5 feet long. They're related to the cryptobranchs, but they also live in a different type of environment. Instead of these fast-running cold streams, the hellbenders typically like the more sluggish, kind of murky water, like ponds and rivers and things like that. So, but they're very endangered now. But they used to be prevalent, I know, as far west as Missouri, but they're mostly an eastern species that can be found, throughout states like Georgia, probably in Virginia, Daniel, Kentucky, West Virginia, some of those spots, Tennessee for sure. But their numbers are becoming, less and less, because of sadly, they're becoming kind of endangered. So,
and then with a salamander of these large size, and considering what you described, that they're the color of them and how they sound like they're pretty well camouflaged and elusive altogether. What would be? I mean, every animal has a predator, or I'm trying to think of the best way to put this. Well, let me put it this way: what would be a salamander like that's worst enemy, or something they would have to avoid? Most of wildlife, would you say, in general?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, I think when they're smaller, they'd certainly be vulnerable. When they're smaller size, they could be eaten by large fish, and maybe bears, and probably eagles and predatory birds when they're smaller, if they're close to the surface. But they tend to stay pretty submerged. Once they get larger, like if we're talking about several feet long, I wouldn't think they would really be at risk. They'd almost be like an apex predator in their environment, because that size is pretty considerable. I mean, particularly out in the Pacific Northwest, I mean, the really only huge fish that you have are like white sturgeon, Acipensor transmontanus. They can get to be like 11 feet long, and they come in the rivers and stuff over there. So, but other than that, I don't know, even like a salmon or a large trout or anything would be really dangerous to a big salamander. But I imagine occasionally they might get eaten by bears, if they're close to the riverbed there. And then bears have an excellent olfactory or sense of smell, as we know. Maybe they can smell them. And that's another thing, is that supposedly, many species of salamanders emit kind of different toxins and oils and things through their skin, and some of those might have a distinct smell to them. So I guess if they were kind of stinky animals, they're not, they might attract some bears or something like that.
Yeah.
But I don't think they really have too many natural predators.
So I'd like to ask this question, Ken. So what are the anecdotal reports of size, like seen outside of the water for this?
Yeah, well, they haven't been seen really outside the water. The earliest famous account goes back to the 1920s and involves a guy named Frank Griffith, who was up there in a place at the head of the New River up there in the Trinity Alps. And he claims that in this small lake that he saw several of these salamanders submerged under the water, and he estimated they were, at least 5 feet long, maybe longer, and
wow.
And then there was a guy in the 1940s. There was an animal handler named Van Herden that was in a place at a small isolated lake up there, and he claims that he saw several. He estimated they were even bigger, that they were up to 8 feet long, which would be truly monstrous. And that he had managed to hook one of these salamanders with a big hook and was trying to pull it out of the water, but it just basically got off the hook and got away. So those are the older accounts, and those spawned some expeditions in the 1940s and 50s, led by that guy I was mentioning earlier, George Myers. There was also a guy named Hubbard, who was a local guy that got involved and interested, but they never found any evidence. They found several examples of Pacific giant salamanders, which are a known species, and they can get to be about 18 inches long. So similar to what Zach was, maybe a little bigger than what Zach was describing earlier. So they're like this long, but they come out of the water and they'll get on rocks and stuff. And they found some of those, but no evidence of anything bigger than that. And then the last real organized expedition. Oh, this is a sideline too. In the late 1950s, and I'm sure you guys and your listeners are familiar with the Pacific Northwest expedition that was launched by Tom Slick and featured guys like Bob Titmus, John Green, Renee DeHinden, Peter Byrne, Ivan Marks. All those guys were in the Pacific Northwest expedition starting in 1958. And they were up there primarily looking for Bigfoot at Bluff Creek and some of those areas. But Tom Slick heard about these giant salamanders and told them to basically keep an eye out as a side. If you found one of these giant salamanders, we'd love one of those too. So that was kind of a semi-expedition, not really. And then the most recent expedition happened in 1994, and it involved a Japanese-American journalist named Kyle Mizukami from San Francisco. He got interested in the subject and did an expedition, but so again, nothing. So it's been a while. It's been almost 20 years since anyone's tried to look for these things. And supposedly there are still, reports that come in from time to time that people claim to see these things. So,
yeah, but they would almost certainly have to be fully aquatic.
Yes, they are. They would.
Yeah, they would.
I agree.
At the big 5 feet size. So I mean, basically it almost sounds to me, this is my opinion, it falls more into an invasive species than a cryptid. Because we like you said, I mean, you've seen Chinese giant salamanders, aquatic ones, and they're big. They can get I believe they can get up to almost 7 feet long. 4.5 feet is par for the course. That's pretty big.
Well,
yeah,
I'll tell you,
I mean, it's a matter of interpretation, but I get what you're saying. But if we were to find, not, it's, granted, these are all improbabilities. They're probably long shots. But if we were to find a new species of salamander that was several feet long in Northern California, it would literally turn the scientific zoological world on its head. I mean, it doesn't sound as exciting and romantic as Bigfoot, but it would still be something like that, living unknown in California up until 2021, never before documented by a scientist. That would be, from a zoological point of view, it would be pretty shocking. And so that's why I consider it a cryptid, but granted, not really a super exciting cryptid, maybe in terms of things like Bigfoot or lake monsters and things like that. But so I get your point.
And the trouble is when you have to differentiate the difference between aquatic things and things that walk on land. You know what I mean? Yeah. So like the coelacanth, which always gets brought up, and there's some context missing with the coelacanth issue, but like the coelacanth. So I mean, giant squid, things like that. Giant squid was a full-blown cryptid that now we know actually exists. Mm-hmm. It's hard to find things in the water, much harder than on land.
Yeah, many challenges.
But, we don't have any good footage of Bigfoot either. So,
no, many challenges. You're right.
Yeah.
When it comes to salamanders in general, most of the salamanders I've ever encountered, of course, were on land, including my favorite one, the eastern newt, which is also considered aquatic because, from what little I know about the eastern newt, they start off in the water, they leave the water, and then they will later on return to the water when it's mating season for them, or time to mate, if that's correct, from my understanding anyway. But they're very interesting because, you could be walking through the woods and, in a semi-damp forest, you'll see them walking along the leaves, they're not really shy little lizards. They'll let you pick them up and everything. They don't squirm off as fast as all the other salamanders do. But the whole time so far since we've been talking, I keep thinking the eastern newt, how these salamanders may be possibly similar as far as, like I said, half aquatic. Maybe there's times where they do go on land. Could that be a possibility as well?
Yeah, and there have been at least there was a sighting I wrote about in one of my books, and I don't remember the exact year, but there was a woman at a place called Arcata, California, which is up there in that same region, who claims that she saw one of these things on land crawling around. That's the only, I think she said it was like 6 feet long or something. That's the only one I can remember, the only sighting that I can think of off the top of my head where it would be on land. Now, there would be a benefit looking at it in terms of adaptation. If these things are as big as we're describing with the Chinese and Japanese specimens, they would be more they would be more adapted to being in the water habitually, because on land, we were talking about predators earlier,
Right.
in the water, they're well protected. They're good. They're slimy. They're good swimmers, whatever. They can hold their breath, or they can breathe cutaneously through their skin. If they crawled onto land, now you've got bears and wolves and mountain lions and eagles and owls and all kinds of predators that would, potentially, I don't know. This is all speculation, but, that is an interesting point you bring up. Now, all amphibians, newts, frogs, salamanders, toads, always start, of course, as, basically in a larval state like a tadpole. So, they would definitely come from the water first initially. And then maybe when they got bigger, like the ones you're describing. And when I was a kid, I used to love to collect spotted and tiger salamanders and stuff. And they were typically not in the water. They were like just in very damp forests, kind of in, on damp soil or moss or something like that. So they like moisture, but you're right. We don't know. Maybe when they get bigger, they could potentially come out of the water.
Right.
But in the larval or tadpole stage, they'd definitely be in the water. So
it's a buoyancy issue. So for a giant salamander, it's a buoyancy issue. They live in the water because that's where they can live, like a dolphin almost, right? A big thing, right? They can't, even though they might have little pads and feet, it's once they get on land, gravity takes over and they lose all their buoyancy.
And they'd be slow. Yeah, you're right.
Or they can't, or can't move at all if they were big enough, right?
No, they'd be out of their element, I would think.
Yeah.
Maybe the smaller ones can scurry, but you're right. The bigger they are, the more lumbering they would be, and maybe more vulnerable. But who knows?
In the water, they have buoyancy, so that's different. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There's another thing you're talking about with these reported giant salamanders getting up anywhere from 5 to 7 feet long. You can imagine, whenever it comes to fight or flight and it defends itself, it's got two pretty powerful weapons. Its bite and its tail. Be like getting hit by a linebacker, you'd think, with that tail, if you got tail whacked by that thing. And not only that, with possibly the bite of that thing, it would be possibly bone crushing at that point.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Uh-huh.
I think they'd have a pretty nasty bite too. They don't really have, like most amphibians, they don't really have teeth, but they have very powerful jaws.
Exactly. So, I'm seeing this thing like if it was to go and turn and fight like a bear or a mountain lion or wolf, I would think that it would fight similar to like maybe an alligator would. It's got the mouth, it'll have its mouth open, intimidation display. That thing tries to make a go for it, it'll snap at it, or if it's trying to get away, it'll swing that tail around and whoop him across the mouth.
Mm.
Now, there's another thing I want to bounce off you, Ken. With these giant salamander reports, has there been any kind of reports of like attacks on humans, like kids or little children? Because I think I heard that somewhere, but I can't place where I heard it.
Well, in the Native American lore. Sorry.
Oh, no. Go ahead.
Yeah, some of the tribes up there, like the Hoopa people, there's about 3 tribes up there in that region, but they have their legends of these giant salamanders, which again, they call them basically the long ones. That is a prevalent part of the mythology, that these things will eat children. In particular, if kids go down to the water, they might get snatched up and devoured by one of these things. But so I'm not aware of any modern accounts of attacks or anything like that. Now, somebody said something earlier in terms of alligators. Some of the descriptions of these things potentially could be hidden under the name alligator. For example, if you look at Sasquatch lore in British Columbia, and it's like Ivan Sanderson's book and some of those old literature, there were people that would say they had seen alligators at lakes in British Columbia, Pitt Lake and other lakes. And so that's another theory, is that what they were actually seeing were these salamanders, but they looked alligator-like. And so that's, You know, an alligator obviously would not be able to survive in Canada. So, but a salamander could. So, so they may have you're right. They may have a behavior that's very similar, like, you know, ambush predator, you know, maybe in kind of just lurking there in the water or at the edge of the water. So, but you know, the stories, I'm sorry, I know I'm rambling a lot.
No, you go ahead.
The stories, you know, about the kids going down to the water and getting devoured, you guys were probably already thinking this, but that sounds very similar. It's a parable. It's like a lot of these monster stories that moms would tell their kids, you know, about the boogeyman and different things, you know, to protect the kids. So that it's a great story to tell you're worried about your kids going down to the river and drowning, right? If you're not keeping an eye on them. So you tell them, oh, don't be sneaking down to the river when I'm not around, because there are giant salamanders down there that'll gulp you up, you know? So you always have to look at those explanations too, you know?
Yeah, when you guys are talking about,
I think I saw Jeremy Wade on River Monsters went fishing.
I was just about to bring that up.
That's it. That's the one I was talking about.
Yeah, about the attacks on people, and he investigated it. Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking about, Jeremy Wade. That's the story or the episode that came to my mind, because I love watching Jeremy Wade River Monsters. So,
yeah, it's a great show. But you know, and not to debunk a lot of that, but I love Jeremy Wade and River Monsters. But they have to make everything scary because it's River Monsters.
Oh yeah,
so
they got to keep that in it.
So it doesn't matter if it's a catfish or a perch or whatever. It's, you know, it's dangerous. It devoured someone, and you know,
right.
It's going to be the man-eating bluegill. You know, it's like so.
Oh my!
I exaggerate, but you know, they do try to make everything on there sound as scary as possible. Some of them are. I mean, yeah, some of those things are pretty scary. Some of those fish he catches, but
yeah. I mean, that's with any even Bigfoot shows. We know, you know, a lot of us, we all watched Finding Bigfoot. We loved it, but they always had that minute before they went to the commercial, that suspense. You're like, oh, what's gonna happen? You know, hey, that's all part of TV. They have to. That's part of what they do. You know, so you know,
more fun. No doubt,
exactly.
It's more fun that way. The danger elements, so
keeps you on the edge of your seat. You know, but before I go on and mention anything else, I want to give Nikki. Nikki's been quiet. I don't know if she's been waiting to jump in there. So I want to make sure Nikki has.
I'm fangirling. I love you, Mr. Gerhard, and
oh
I'm
gosh,
just listening to everything. But I mean, you're everywhere. Your biography is outstanding, and as I was looking, I mean, History Channel, Travel Channel, Science Channel, Nat Geo. You're always there.
Oh, that's very sweet of you. Thank you, Nikki.
It's great.
I'm blushing.
I always look forward to seeing all of that. So I am fascinated by the giant salamander too. I think, you know, I never thought of it as being something that could be here in the North America, or, you know, here in the United States. But is there one place that you think that you really could find these?
Well, you know, as I already acknowledged, it's kind of a long shot. They've been reported from the Trinity River National Forest, which is up in there, you know, around Bluff Creek and some of those areas, but even other parts of Northern California. But Jamie Wayne from the Bluff Creek Project, who's kind of our main scout out there, he knows a lot of people. A lot of those mountain creeks and streams and rivers are fairly remote and hard to get to. But there are also teams of biologists that go up there on occasion to do like salmon surveys and, you know, other types of wildlife surveys. So it's surprising that if these things existed, it would be surprising that they hadn't been found. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to locate some even more remote mountain streams and creeks and things that just don't ever get surveyed and just don't, you know, basically we're just looking for the most remote areas that haven't really been searched for anything. So it's hard to say now. Like I said, there have been sightings around a place called the New River, Hubbard Lake, Fish Lake. All of those places I think are in Humboldt or Del Norte County, maybe. But we're going to be searching even a little bit farther north of there, very close to the Oregon border, in a place called the Marble Mountains, Elk River and Medicine Mountain. And I don't remember all the locations that we've talked about, but some of those areas are pretty dense and remote. And, you know, people don't go up there a lot of times to some of those spots because they're pretty hard to get to.
Right. Another thing that I'm gonna pull away from the salamander a little bit is that I was really interested in finding out more about the Pangea Institute. I believe that was with Scott Marlowe. Is he who brought that up?
Out of Florida,
yeah. And I really hadn't heard about it, so I was wondering if you could get some more insight into what that is.
Yeah, well, sadly, of course, Scott passed away probably about 1.5 years, 2 years ago. Right. He was a good friend of mine. I'd known him for years, and he was a outstanding cryptozoologist from Florida. Kind of rubbed a lot of people the wrong way just because he was very opinionated and outspoken. Really smart guy, but I know a lot of people.
I've had run-ins with him too a couple of times.
Everybody mourned his loss, but people would say, "Man, Scott really pissed me off that time when I said this," and he, So I heard a lot of those stories, but he was a good guy. But yeah, the Pangea Institute was a thing that he co-founded out in Florida, and I'm embarrassed to admit I can't even remember the name of his co-founder. He had But basically, it was an organization, a nonprofit that was involved in cryptozoological research and also archaeology and just mysteries in general. And they would try to raise funds. And I say I'm speaking in the past tense because I don't know since Scott passed away how active they are.
He did kind of just
he was kind of the driving force, but I was honored. He made me a fellow of the Institute several years ago, which basically just meant that I was an advisor. We did have one interesting adventure the Pangea Institute did. We did a skunk ape expedition down there in the Green Swamp in 2005. And this was just after a woman named Jennifer Ward had a famous sighting where she was driving home after a hurricane, and she supposedly saw this skunk ape standing in a ditch, and reported it to the newspaper. And her story was kind of widely circulated. So we got to interview her, and we went to the Green Swamp. And one thing Scott Marlowe was really brilliant at was getting the local governments involved in cryptid endeavors. So, for example, he actually got a Skunk Ape Expedition permit from the Florida State Wildlife Management Department. So we had a permit to go out and look for the skunk ape in the Green Swamp, which we spent about a week out there looking and camping. And we actually had some of the park rangers off the record would come by to visit our camp, and they would say, well, I can't go on the record with this, but they're here. We know they're here. We know they exist, but so we can't acknowledge it officially. So anyways, I don't want to go into too much of a long story here, but this is kind of funny. So Scott opened this Pangea Institute Skunk Ape Expedition up to the public, and I was there. There were some other experienced researchers, but there were also some college students that came up from Miami, some girls that were basically just doing this like as an extra credit thing, and they were kind of young and just thought it sounded kind of cool to look for the skunk ape. Well, these poor girls, Scott spent the day, or put them in a tent for the day, and like made them watch like The Legend of Boggy Creek and Creature from Black Lake, and like all of these scary Bigfoot movies from the 70s, And,
oh gosh!
And I don't know if he was doing some kind of psychological experiment because these girls didn't know what they were getting into. And then, of course, later at night when it got dark, he had to run into town with some other researchers to get some supplies. So he left me alone with these college girls, kind of sitting around the campfire, and then we were being surrounded by a pack of coyotes that were yipping and making noise, and these girls were just terrified. I mean, I was like, they're just coyotes, they're just checking us out. It's not Bigfoot. But anyways, I thought that was kind of a humorous thing that Scott did to kind of, I don't know. Like I said, I guess he was just trying to get a reaction out of these. You know, maybe he was trying to prepare. Okay, this is what we're getting into. But the whole situation was pretty comical.
Wow.
Yeah. Talk about priming someone's brain. Jeez.
That's pretty good, though.
That's like watching Jaws while you're in the ocean. You know, right?
Yeah, exactly. Or Titanic when you're on a cruise or something. You know,
Wow. Well, talking about Bigfoot, kind of shifted gears and kind of merging over as we were talking a little bit about that. Have you been involved with any latest Bigfoot projects since the last time we've had you on here? Like I said, it's been some, probably 5 years or more, probably 7, 8 years. I don't know. But.
Yeah. Sadly, obviously like most people, I haven't been able to get out in the field over the past year plus because of, for obvious reasons, travel restrictions and things. But, I'm involved with a lot of different cryptid projects. So obviously, like most people, I consider Bigfoot to be the rock star of cryptozoology, and it's utterly fascinating. I do get a lot of people that contact me with eyewitness reports and things, but I haven't really done. I hit the woods in Kentucky with Charlie Raymond back maybe a year or two ago. We were up there for a short amount of time. But other than that, I've been investigating a lot of different type. I just wrote a book about the Loch Ness monsters. I've been doing some lake monster stuff and, Thunderbird things. So unfortunately, I haven't done a lot of Bigfoot research. I missed out on an opportunity to go up to Alaska a few years ago to do some research. So yeah, I hate to admit it, man, I haven't really done a lot of good Bigfoot field work lately. There was one thing that I was able to sort of take care of, which was I've had several alleged hair samples that people have mailed me for like maybe a decade or more. I had a handful of people that had sent me like from different places, West Virginia, Oklahoma, Texas, and some other places that said that they maybe had Bigfoot hair. And so they sent me these samples. And they literally sat in my drawer for a decade because I don't really have, a microscope. I don't have, DNA testing is expensive, and I don't know if you do that right away anyways. But ultimately, I managed to get those hair samples to a guy named Dr. Haskell Hart.
Yeah, we had him on here not long ago.
Okay, so he's a friend of mine. He lives right up the road from me here in Canyon Lake. So he and I get together a lot, and so Haskell's a brilliant guy, and he does have a great microscope and ways to photograph hairs, magnify them, photograph, study them. And so he was actually he wrote a nice little report for me, and most of the hair samples he was able to debunk as known animals. I think some were like horses, some were bovines, one was a house cat. And all of this is done with, you guys know with hair samples, it's a comparative analysis. So if what every different mammal has a diagnostic feature to its hair, the medulla, the scalation patterns, the banding, tapering patterns, pigmentation, things like that. But there is one hair from Oklahoma that was sent to me by a Native American girl. She said she found it in a barbed wire fence where there had been some alleged sightings. And so he's got that one or two hairs that he's still studying. And he says, they look, we're not going to go overboard here, but we can't easily dismiss them as something, easily. So that's exciting. So he's working on that. And I don't know. I'm always a little bit reserved about that, but trying to look more into that kind of thing, like analyzing alleged evidence and stuff. So
cool.
There's a lot of alleged evidence.
That is interesting. Yeah.
That's the problem,
Yeah. Well, here's the last thing I want to say about the hairs is, any researchers out there that are listening, because they always immediately, when they find a hair, they immediately jump to, let's get this DNA tested. Guys, DNA testing is really damn expensive, okay? But beyond that, you would not need to, you don't want to go to that step until you do, and any Bigfoot researcher can do this. Buy a microscope, go online, and you can find photos of different types of mammal hairs, and just learn what the features generally look like. And that way, if you find an unusual hair, what you think is an unusual hair, you can put it under the microscope, study it, and that way you can, even as a novice, you can kind of rule it out and say, okay, maybe it's not a Bigfoot hair because it looks just like this deer hair or whatever. And I don't know. So I'm trying to encourage researchers to kind of empower themselves with tools like that, or ways that they can screen their own evidence, or have a friend or a peer do it, and not immediately talk about, DNA tests and all that kind of stuff. So.
I agree. That is what you just said is important. They should do that if they think they have hair, instead of send it to you or Meldrum, or, let's keep going down the line, right? The people who can we send this to? But I'll go a step further. Screw hair. Hair's not even important. To me, dude, Ken, hair is not important. That's because of number one, what you said, the expense. So even if you found something interesting, that was an untapered human-like hair, never been cut, primate origin, there's not any guarantee that you can extract DNA from it.
True.
And even if you could, there's not one DNA lab in this world that will sequence it to its fullest sequencing.
Yeah.
Not one.
Well, Ken,
why?
for one thing,
nobody has $500,000 to pay them to do that, and they don't want to waste their time on a taboo subject.
And you have to have the right kinds of primers too. So if someone's testing for Bigfoot DNA, they would have to have a selection of grade 8. It's a very specific. You're right. You make some great points, Pat. It would be very difficult to find DNA evidence that way. I agree.
So I say this: if I witness a Bigfoot right in front of my face, jump over a barbed wire fence and leave a clump of hair on the top of that, here's what I do with it. I walk up to it, grab it, look at it, and go, "Huh, interesting." I don't care. That's how much I care about hair. That's exactly what I would do. I wouldn't pursue that hair any further than looking at it going, wow, okay. But that's just me. And I'm a different kind of guy in the Bigfoot world, if you haven't noticed.
That's fair. I do the same thing with photographs. If anyone sends me a photo or a video, I'm just like, later. I haven't seen anything that's made my jaw drop. And that's, anything short of that is just, to me, it's just like we're going in circles now. It's
right.
Like, here's another possible something in a picture, but where does that take us?
Okay. Well, let me ask you this. I'm just curious. I mean, so would you say that in the 50 plus years since the Patterson-Gimlin film, there's nothing better than that? Nothing more compelling?
Not in my opinion. I mean, it's in a pantheon by itself. And then maybe you have a handful of videos and photos that are like a huge step down from that are kind of intriguing,
right? But
still just frustratingly inconclusive. So that's just my opinion. But
right, I agree. I mean, I'm right there with you. I find the Patterson-Gimlin film to be extremely conclusive, in my opinion. Or I'd say fairly conclusive. So it's more in the conclusive category than it is compelling, So yeah, intriguing might be compelling, but dude, we haven't gotten anything better than that in 50 plus years. There has to be a reason.
Even with today's with all the technology that cameras and phones have come to, even when somebody does post something, it's still either blurry because or it's most of it's obvious hoaxes.
Yeah.
I mean, I got a prepaid cell phone, but I take pictures with it out in the woods. It takes great pictures. It's not the most expensive phone out there. It does great, but I never have claimed to have a Bigfoot on my pictures, like 90% of the community that, but and their blurry stick images and bushes, but
as the technology gets better, I mean, there's basically the dichotomy is if the picture is too pixelated and blurry and out of focus, then obviously it's useless in my opinion. Yeah. But if we get photographic evidence that's too good, then
it's questioned.
Then it's like this could be special effects, it could be CGI or Photoshop. The technology is that people can really make some pretty amazing fakery these days. So
they can, but I'll say this: if they're willing to provide the metadata, you can rule all that out, and you can get to the nitty gritty of this is what the camera actually saw.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's my biggest thing with anything modern technology. Anybody that comes to the table they have footage, you got to provide that metadata. Like otherwise, it could be CGI, it could be Photoshop, it could be. I mean, you could buy amazing programs to make stuff look like almost like Avengers. Like Avenger movie, cool. You know what I mean? So, yeah. But yeah, metadata, you provide that cuts all that out.
That's a fair point. I would say my words of encouragement to all researchers out there, the focus I think should be on physical remains. I mean, let's face it, guys. If Bigfoot exists, we're talking about massive animals that have been on this continent for thousands and thousands of years, and that many thousands, tens or hundreds of thousands have died. And large animals like that leave behind big bones and big teeth. And I know it's a quandary why we haven't found that stuff. I'd say look in caves. I mean, things fossilize really well in caves.
Yeah, that's where it would be. Yeah.
I mean, that's what I always do. If you can do it safely and legally, and you have caves in your area, that's where think of a lot of the hominid discoveries in recent decades, from Homo naledi to Homo floresiensis. A lot of these they're all found in caves because they preserve so well there. And all we would need is a tooth, and then a skilled anthropologist could look at a tooth and say this is a hominid. And if we found a hominid tooth in North America, that would move Bigfoot research forward, 1,000%. I mean, because suddenly now you have a species that was here. So, anyways, that's just an opinion.
I've heard many anthropologists say that we've only got a little tiny bit of the fossil record, right now.
Yeah,
we're just barely touched on it. So they're still out there to be discovered if they're there. They're still, we've got all these different rungs of the ladder to find that we haven't found yet. They're there. It just is going to take us quite a while to find all that.
That's true.
But you're definitely right about the caves, Ken. I mean, it would almost have to be that, because otherwise things get destroyed.
Yeah.
The only reason we know Gigantopithecus even exists is because porcupines dragged that stuff into caves, and they couldn't quite get through the enamel of the big giganto, blacky teeth, right?
Right. No, that's a good point. Those fossils were, they stayed preserved in those caves for 300,000 years or something. So, so you're right. Caves are great places to look. If someone can do it legally and safely, I don't want anyone to get hurt, because there is a skill to caving. But
so that opens up a whole nother area of difficultness. For it to be difficult to even find something like that. If it ever happened, if it ever even happened that the fossilized remains or any kind of remains ended up in a cave to where a human could even find it.
Yeah.
The improbabilities, the percentages just go off the charts on that,
Yeah,
So-
there's been times where I swore I spotted caves in my research area where I explore most of the time. There was one in particular where I was located through the woods. There was a river. The river wasn't all that wide, but it was wide enough to where, hey, either you're going to walk through it and get soaked or whatever. But when I first noticed what I believed to be a cave, because it looked like it was a big opening, looked like it had it went into the side of the mountain.
Mhm.
I was determined. I said, well, I know where this is. I'm coming back here. I'm gonna make it across that river. And the river was only a few feet, a foot to 2, 3, depends on what part of it. Anyway, I decided I'm gonna get my feet wet. I need to go see if this is really a cave because I was excited. And then, of course, I make it across there, and you're approaching this big rock, ledge area, and all of a sudden you come up to what you thought was a cave, and it looks like it could have been a cave at one time, but you have all this loose shale and loose stones just piled up right in front of it, and then behind it was the rest of like a rock wall. It went in a few feet. It looked like it was going to be promising, but it was disappointing. However, I know there is other caves. There's a lot of the area I have not touched foot in. I've covered a lot of ground over the years in this area. But I know there is caves. There's a lot of small dens and inlets. My only problem is looking in some of these other smaller holes to see if they do lead into something. The thing is, there's a lot of rattlesnakes out here. Be my luck. I look into a hole and something jumps out at me, or a small bear or coyote. Because I've had a lot of encounters with bears. I know, but I'm pretty risky on some things, because I do carry with me, but I always carry lights with me. So if I could shine into something to look deeper in to make sure it's clear, I say, okay, I've done that with a few holes and crevices I've come across, but
no, I see that just like the hair, the remains are a road to not even try and bother to go down as a person or even a team, just like the hair. Because what are the chances you're going to find remains or 100 years old remains or 1,000-year fossilization? These are the things that I come up against. Skeptics always ask, So I feel like I'm like fighting a fight on both sides with skeptics and the Bigfoot world. Remains aren't worth going after. Go try and find the remains of a mountain lion. Good luck.
Or a bear. Exactly.
Forget a bear
too.
Like, if you put your mind to finding the remains of a bear, I think you could do it. It might take a year or two, but a mountain lion, forget about it. Like that'll never happen.
Yeah. So I came across one story.
Bigfoot are more rare than mountain lion. Therefore, it's a waste of time. Like you're literally, you're looking for gold in a place where there's no gold.
Yeah, you got to. Thing is, I know, Ken, Pat's no fun. But anyway.
What's fun about looking for a dead Bigfoot? You would spend your whole life looking for a dead Bigfoot? What's fun about that?
I think that comes with the territory of exploring and just, whatever you come across. If you have to come across something, that's awesome, You're
either going to find a dead Bigfoot or you're not. You're not going to go look for one and find it. Does that make sense?
Well,
you might.
Yeah, I get your point, but I think you've got you're right. It's probably a long shot, but you've got a better chance of finding remains if you look for them than if you don't. So there's no question about that. But think about how much effort is being put into Bigfoot researchers putting up trail cams everywhere. Where's that been taking us for the past 15 years or whatever?
Longer than that.
So I'm just trying to suggest something different, a new kind of approach. That's all. But you're right. It's probably a long shot.
We get feedback from somewhere. Sorry,
yeah.
We get feedback. I hear my own
I
annoying
think
voice.
it's
It
Daniel.
might be me. I don't know.
I think it's you, Daniel.
Bigfoot aren't that rare? Yes, they are. They have to
All right,
be.
hold on one second.
I mean, they would have to be rare. I mean, if they're not rare, then they're paranormal. I mean, there's something else going on. But if they're flesh and blood, they are very rare.
Well, they're rare to you because you don't see them all the time.
No,
They're not rare to the people who see them every day.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Me and the rest of the 350 million people that live in the United States, you know, of course they're rare.
They're not looking for them, you know.
Okay, I mean, you know how many black bear there are in, like, the black bear population? I mean,
yeah, but we can't really compare with them because we do have them on fossil record.
No. There's a comparison in population. Feedback again.
I don't know where that's coming from.
So whatever that comparison is, it exists, right? So are Bigfoot, do they outpopulate black bear?
Well, we don't know that.
Probably not.
That's all speculation. Are they burying their dead? If they're burying their dead, then that's going to skew all those results because we're not, unearthing mounds to find that out for fear of really unearthing indigenous mounds. Because I know here in the Southwest, in our area, we have tons of indigenous Native American mounds that you cannot touch.
Yeah,
what if they're not, what if they're Bigfoot mounds? That's just, something that's thrown out there as to why we're not running into bones.
I get that. There's a reason why we don't mess with Native American mounds because it's probably full of Native American remains.
Yeah, I'm saying, is it a Native American mound or is it a Bigfoot mound? A mound is a mound,
My only point is that is Bigfoot rare? They would almost have to be. I mean, again, how often do you see deer and other animals? How often do we see Bigfoot? Not that much relative to what's known in the natural world. So are there 5 million Bigfoot crawling the U.S.? Hell no. No way. They're extremely rare. I mean, Meldrum's theory is the 1 to 100 for black bear. I think 1 to 100.
It's more like 1 to 1,000.
Or
yeah,
1 to 1,000. Sorry, I get that conflated in my head. I think you're right, Ken. You properly correct me.
That was
1,000.
That was actually.
Less. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that was in Lauren Coleman's book. He mentions something along those lines.
Well, in my book, The Essential Guide to Bigfoot, which I highly recommend everyone out there, I speculate about population, and part of it was through a conversation with Jeff Meldrum, and also a guess or a speculation by Dr. Grover Krantz. And who knows? It's just speculation, but I think about 4,000 spread across the continent would be seems like the most logical in terms of, as Krantz put it, if there were more than that, we would know for sure they existed. If there were less than that, there's not enough genetic viability for a population spread out all across the continent to reproduce and maintain a population. So, and that does, I think, match that 1 to 1,000 bear to potential Sasquatch ratio, which, it's just a guess, but that seems like it's a calculated guess. So
sure. But I would disagree with this, is that you could quadruple that number and it's still enough. That's still enough to be like where we're at, like knowledge wise.
Sure.
So I don't buy that. If it was just more than that, we would know about them. Well, we kind of do know about them. Here we are, right?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. So it's just not that the whole world knows about them because nobody's, dragged one into town yet. basically,
Well, let me jump in there real quick. Ken, yeah, I just saw your message there. But I tell you what, I know you got to get ready to go soon. I would definitely love to have you back more for, the discussions are awesome. And, what we get into on here, it can go in every direction, as you probably found out. That's usually how we do it. It goes every which way, but to us, that's kind of how we roll. So I understand if you need to jump off. We definitely would love to have you back. We may stay on. Definitely. The rest of us may stay on for a few minutes longer, but till next time, if we could get you back again, and I promise you, one of these days we will get you to Virginia. Because I know we've been in. Yeah, I know me and you talked about that before, so we will definitely get you there.
Yeah, I'd love to make it out there sometime soon, and I absolutely would love to come back on the show, and we can pick it up from here and talk about Bigfoot or whatever else you guys want. I'm definitely down. Some great discussion, guys. I think some strong points made all the way around, and let's face it, this is all just everything in this field is speculation. There are no experts. We're all just doing the best guesswork we can, and but that's the fun part, So
absolutely.
I enjoy it.
Yeah.
And then since you and Nikki are neighbors, maybe you guys could work something out and come up to Virginia together. Because Nikki's still trying to come to Virginia. Her husband's spending all the money for her to get up here. So.
I spent all my money.
Yeah, Nikki.
Last year I was so ready to go. I had everything booked early. And then the stupid COVID hit, and I had to cancel everything. And, and then I'm out of work for a year. So now it's like, do I spend that money?
Yeah, Nikki, you're just a few hundred miles right down the road. So, when you're on your way to Virginia, come pick me up and we'll go.
8 hours away from you at least. I'm in El Paso.
Yeah, there are a lot of signs around me that say El Paso. I'm on the far edge of San Antonio on I-10, but it's a pretty big gap between us, guys. It's a pretty big gap. It's like
Texas
the length
is big.
The length of Virginia, maybe between us, but we're still neighbors.
I've been to Texas many times, and it's big in all those ways. Big sky, long drive. You're basically going like a third of the way through the entire U.S. when you go through Texas. Yeah.
Well, Dickie, if you could get a ride to Georgia, you could ride up with Pat and Kim.
Yeah. No.
I am not driving 3 days to go over there, dude.
Oh, Lord.
Fair enough.
Well,
funny.
Well, Ken, I ain't gonna hold you up any longer. Again, thank you very much for coming on. It was a pleasure having you. It was a lot of fun, and definitely till next time. So,
thank you, guys. Yeah, thanks to everyone who listened in. Thank you. Good to talk to you both, and thanks to everyone who listened in. Everyone in the chat room, appreciate it.
Oh, most definitely. So, till next time.
Okay, we'll talk to you soon, guys. Take care.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye.
All right, it is just the three of us. So yeah, that went pretty well. So Pat, I just thought of it. I know you probably wanted to talk about music. I know you mentioned it earlier. So
nah, it's all right.
Yeah, that was definitely an interesting discussion with him. So anything new with you guys?
No, I mean, I booked my rooms like we were talking earlier. Like I got the rooms booked. I'm so happy. So I'll be able to stay through Sunday.
Yeah, the good thing about where you guys booked your room at, it's actually that's in Stanton, Virginia, which is, like I said, it's only about roughly about 3 miles, give or take,
it's not far.
from the other hotel, but. So, and plus, if you guys need to go to the store, you're around plenty of stores. There's a Walmart up across the street. So there's a Sheetz gas station. There's fast food all up and down there if you guys need something there. and it's right off the highway, so you know.
No, hey, Daniel, you're gonna have to turn me on to the best pizza place in Stanton. Turn me on to the good local pizza place, man, because I want that when I get Stanton. There. Yeah, and Friday night I want to order like the best pizza I can from that area.
Actually, the closest best pizza I could think of is actually off the same exit of the Holiday Inn. You would have to go past the entrance of the Holiday Inn, go all the way out to Route 11, and then turn right at the light, and then go up about a mile or so. There's a little pizza joint.
And then when you see the little squirrel at the end of the road, make a U-turn and come back at
the race. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
All right.
Turn right at his nuts. So.
Just give me the name of the pizza place. There's this thing called Google Maps.
Woo, that was good.
Yeah, it's called Maria's Pizza. So.
I like it already. Yeah, so man, like I'm happy that we have that booked for that price. It's gonna be like that was a big weight lifted off my shoulders actually booking that shit.
Yeah,
dude. I mean, I have so much shit going on in my life, dude. It's hard. It's so difficult to deal without even thinking about going to fucking Virginia. Is hard to think about. But
you guys have all the money, Pat.
No, we don't.
I'm just joking.
I mean, I'll be a millionaire by this time next year, but whatever.
I'll be a millionaire. I got a lotto ticket on my refrigerator. I forgot to check yesterday.
Oh, it might just be the one.
It could be the one.
Yeah, it's like I'm headed down to Kentucky tomorrow after work. Well, I'm leaving early from work tomorrow, but
right? Yeah,
and I'm on kind of a tight budget, but I got it worked out. I mean, I got a full tank right now. I just filled up on the way home from work today, and with my vehicle, I should be able to make it down there and back on my tank. My vehicle is only a 6-cylinder, but it does pretty good on gas. So yeah, we'll see. So yeah, we're when I get down there tomorrow evening, we're being treated to dinner at a Mexican restaurant.
Well, is that going to happen to me when I come to Virginia? What?
Only if you're from Texas. So
I better get on again today and see if I can afford it if something pops up.
There actually is a new Mexican restaurant. I have not been to it yet, but my brother's been there. And then everybody's talking about how amazing it is. I need to get there too. I think it's called.
Listen, if I go there and it's a Mexican restaurant with a canned soup on top of a burrito, oh, that's bad. That's gonna be bad.
Oh no, I don't know. Like I said, I've heard a lot of bragging about it, so I don't know. I have yet to try it out myself. I think it's Los Panchos or El Panchos or something like that.
Panchos. It's Panchos.
We used to have a Panchos here in El Paso.
That would be cool to do, man. You and I are gonna have to coordinate some things, obviously, dude. Like I want to hang out more than just like the conference, So.
Well, I tell you what, I can't make no promises right now because I know Zach had asked about it. Because see, last year when we were going to do this in 2020, the Friday before the event, I was planning to get together with a few people and taking them out to the woods and or do whatever. We did that. We actually did that at our first year event, where we actually had dinner and then a group of us went out to the woods that evening, and
right,
and that was all that day before the event started, and it worked out pretty good. So, but I don't know. We'll see. I mean, that's still possible if everyone wants to. If a group of people want to get together and maybe grab a bite to eat. Because even leading up to this point, it's things are tight on me for that too. Because I still have a few things I need to pay out and take care of. But as far as I had an issue, like I was talking to Jen Cruz and a couple other people. I was like, the venue is limited on their chairs. I mean, there's so many chairs in one room and so many chairs in the other room. I was like, if I have it set up to pick up some chairs to rent some, but I'm trying to avoid that if all possible. Because, but if I have to, I'll do that. But then again, I had a few other people say, why don't you put something on the website or make a post about people bringing their own chairs? I said, that's kind of tacky, ain't it? So, nah. So if you get, because the thing is, the ticket sales are doing so. Yeah, the ticket sales are doing pretty good. As like it's, you know. So, you know, I did actually make a post about it. I added it in the website. I made a post about it on the event page. It's like, look, you know, because due to the expected, you know, overflow of people, it's recommended and suggested that you bring your own chair. You know, we're gonna have, we're gonna have chairs set up in there, but not as much as I could, you know, whatever the venue has.
Yeah, so, camping chairs are easy to put in vehicles. You know.
Oh yeah, and they're comfortable.
And people would probably have them anyway, right? You know,
they're more comfortable than the regular chairs.
Yeah, because the regular chairs, they're just those metal fold-out chairs. Then again, some of the chairs are going to actually be cushion chairs because the chairs that are in the back room, there's a church that's been meeting in the back room with indoor speakers, where the speakers and the vendors, some of the indoor speakers, vendors will be. That back room has some nice, comfortable looking chairs. It's actually the same kind of chairs that our church uses. That they actually just they did away with their what do you call them?
Pews.
The bench. Yeah, the pews, and they put chairs in there, and the chairs are so much more comfortable, you know. But so there'll be some comfortable chairs there. But and there's
if I end up going, I want a little roped off section.
Oh, the VIP section. I think we can manage that.
Oh, that'll be funny.
I got this ribbon rope. Well, it's actually those ribbons are those ropes that have the little flags hanging off of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, we sell that at work inside of our shop. Oh. You know, I was actually thinking about getting some of that and putting them up. It would actually kind of look neat, but I was like, and then I got the thing. Where would I actually hang that or put that up at? I don't know. So,
Daniel.
Yeah.
You know we're still live, right?
Oh yeah, yeah. Okay. People like to listen to us ramble.
Okay, I thought we were off air.
Oh.
Yeah.
Nah.
Yep.
Nah.
Nah.
So,
nah.
Oh no, it's all good. You know, I usually don't do lives during the middle of the week, but I am going to do a Facebook Live when I get down to Kentucky.
That's what I was going to ask you.
Yeah, I don't know if I may be able to do it Friday night. It depends how late. I don't know if I don't do it Friday night after dinner. I may do it sometime Saturday before the event starts. Because I'll be able to do it from the cabin I'll be staying in, because the cabin has Wi-Fi, surprisingly. So, yeah. So, Jennifer McDaniel says, Michael Cook is trying to get a hold of you, Jen. I said, I know. I've already responded to him. He messaged me a couple times. That's what kind of messed up my signal earlier, my interference. So, yeah, he kept messaging me. So he said, oh, whenever you get to it, because I told him I'm live right now. So, but, well, yeah. So, yeah, because when I'm going down there, I'll have my daughter with me. So me and Brianna will be headed down there. So she's excited about it. So,
well, yeah,
yeah,
that's cool stuff. But yeah, I can't wait to come up, man, for the conference. It's gonna be fun, dude.
You know? Absolutely.
Yeah, and we'll figure something out. We'll work something out between now and then. Like, I mean, will there be food? Will there be food at the conference?
Absolutely.
Oh, yes.
We got like 3 food. Well, technically, we got 3 food trucks. 4 if you include the ice cream truck.
Right.
So, we have our one food vendor that's been with us the last 2 years. They usually do a lot of burgers, chicken sandwiches, and other fried foods. And fried Oreos and all that good stuff. So,
Cool.
then we have we have a barbecue truck that will be there. Yeah, it's called Shredder's Barbecue. They do what they call old school barbecue. So that should be interesting. And then the venue, the one who runs the venue, they have a concession stand in behind, because there's a couple baseball fields in the back, because her daughter does baseball or softball back there, and so she asked if she could set up the concession stand. So I said, yeah, absolutely. So there'll be that food, whatever they serve there. I think they're going to keep it like hot dogs and hamburgers pretty much. So, and drinks. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting. It's going to be a lot of fun, and I have a really good feeling. I think we're going to have a decent turnout this year. I really do. Because I mean, there's almost 100. I mean, as far as ticket sales are just for the presentation alone. That's like we have almost 170 tickets sold just for the presentation. So, and that doesn't include who shows up at the door, because we get a lot of people that show up that haven't bought tickets. Plus people like to come out for the vendors. So I've been advertising a lot about the vendors because we're gonna have way over a dozen or so vendors. Anywhere between arts and crafts. We got a lot of Bigfoot themed vendors, which is pretty cool. We got a couple different Bigfoot vendors that will be doing stuff for the. I don't know if you guys ever heard of them, called Big Ape Creations. They attend a lot of Bigfoot conventions along the East Coast, and they have these wooden, custom-made wooden picture frames. There's actually one I use as a flyer. They're actually going to be making the ECBR annual Virginia Bigfoot Conference souvenir frames, and they're actually made out of wood pallets. They use wooden pallet. They call it, they do a lot of good stuff. I know one lady, she is going to be doing, she does like quilts and stuff and different fabrics. Now she's going to be designing, if I'm not mistaken, she mentioned to me that she's going to have Bigfoot fabrics and blankets and all kinds of stuff. Then we have Bigfoot gear, or actually it's called Bigfoot search gear. They make custom made Bigfoot shirts. They're actually providing our event T-shirt this year, so they'll be, anyone who wants an event T-shirt, they can get it directly from them. They'll have a booth set up. So, but yeah, we got a lot of good stuff going on. Then we got a few local businesses that are just coming up to set up on display as well. So you'll have some of them, and then it's going to be all kinds of good stuff. So we're going to have and one lady, she's going to be selling different women's like pocketbooks and purses, and a lot of it's going to be, how she describe it? I think she does, like, she's going to have like female gun holsters and stuff like that, different things, leather, and it sounds like whatever it was, it sounded pretty cool. So but I'm not going to try to, I'm not going to try to name them all or remember them all, but yeah, so. Jennifer Daniels she said, I'm still trying to come even though Justin can't make it. Awesome. So, well, tell you what, guys, you guys have anything you want to throw out there? We'll go ahead and jump off here and call it a night. I'm good.
I'm good, man. Squatch talk.
All right. And guys, for those listening or future listeners, we will, you'll hear from me down in Kentucky when we do the event. I may record that live. So if there's a good signal there at the location, I'm sure there will be. I'm sure there's Wi-Fi there. I will try to go Facebook Live, and
definitely, I want to be along for the ride.
Oh yeah, absolutely, yeah. Because I may either from my phone or my daughter's phone, because she's got Verizon, because my parents got her connected to off their thing. I have a cheap service. That's why my service.
Well, then have her just put it on and.
Yeah, well, like I said, if they have Wi-Fi, I'll just connect to their Wi-Fi. If I'm sure it'll work fine if they got Wi-Fi. So. Yeah. Oh, yep. Jennifer McDaniel says yes, they have Wi-Fi. Awesome. So yeah. you guys will be able to watch me and Michael Cook. For the record, Michael Cook already gave me a heads up. He said he will be drinking before he does his presentation, so anything's possible. So I told him I might have a couple drinks too. It might. I think it's going to be a big crowd in that restaurant, so I definitely want to be loose and relaxed. So, yeah. As far as the conference goes, I might. You're not supposed to have alcohol on the premises there. However, I'll keep the cooler in my vehicle, so
Don't get yourself in trouble.
No,
I'll have my own cooler. Yeah.
I told Pat, not Pat. I told Zach that I will have Squatch Ale for him. He was asking about some Squatch Ale, so I might pick up a case. I'm only going to pick up one case because that stuff's expensive. So yeah, it's like $12 for a 6-pack. I mean, I paid $10 for the 6-pack of the stuff I like to drink, but I don't drink it all the time. So
yeah,
but
nice.
But either way, we will definitely have some. We'll have a good time there. So,
yeah.
But Nikki, if maybe you're holding out on me, maybe you're gonna surprise me and show up. I don't know, but you act like you're not sure if you can make it, and I think you're just gonna surprise me, huh? So
we'll have to see.
Oh yeah, see, listen, you don't want to confess, yeah. Well, if you need a ride from the airport, let me know so I can arrange that.
It's like a totally going to be a last minute thing with the money thing. It's just going to be, okay, I'm doing it, and click the button and then it'll be done.
Mm-hmm.
But
your husband finds out, hey, why'd you take a loan out? I'm going to Virginia.
As soon as I can get that credit card out of his wallet, then we'll be good.
Well, wait till he's asleep. Not just
That's the whole thing. We're on opposite schedules. I'm asleep when he's at work, and then it's
right.
It's crazy. So we'll see.
Oh, Jennifer McDaniel said, Jennifer said the restaurant where I will be speaking became known for the show Justified. Interesting. I know the show. I never watched it though. That's pretty cool. Okay. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you guys for coming on tonight. Usually we don't do this on Thursday nights. Usually we're here live on Fridays, but till next time, and be on the lookout for a live feed coming from Kentucky, Harlan, Kentucky. So guys have a good night, and we'll talk to you guys later.
Bye.